The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but humanity had managed to carve out a small piece of it for itself. Over centuries, people had spread across the stars, colonizing planets, building cities among alien landscapes, and forging alliances with other intelligent species. It was an era of progress and promise, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Jun-hyuk stood at the edge of the observation deck on the flagship Eternal Dawn. His sharp eyes scanned the expanse of space outside the reinforced glass. The view was breathtaking. A swirling nebula painted in hues of purple and gold stretched endlessly before him. But Jun-hyuk wasn't there to admire the beauty. He was thinking about power, control, and how fragile humanity truly was. He turned away from the window and walked toward the table in the center of the room. On it lay a holographic map of the human-controlled territories. Red dots marked recent skirmishes with hostile alien factions, while blue lines indicated trade routes that kept the colonies alive. Beside him stood Yoonji, her arms crossed as she studied the same display. Her expression was calm, but there was a flicker of impatience in her dark eyes. "We're losing," Jun-hyuk said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was low, almost a whisper, yet it carried weight. "Humanity is weak, divided. We squabble over resources like children fighting over scraps." Yoonji nodded slowly. She agreed with him, though she rarely admitted it aloud. "And what do you propose we do?" "Humanity isn't exactly known for its unity," Jun-hyuk smirked. "Unity isn't the answer. Not anymore. If we want to survive, if we want to thrive, we need something stronger than unity, something absolute." Yoonji raised an eyebrow. "You've been talking like this for months now. Absolute what? Power? Control?" "Both," he replied without hesitation. "But not just for ourselves, for all of us, or at least those who deserve it." He leaned forward, resting his hands on the edge of the table. "Think about it, Yoonji. Look at our history. Every great civilization rises by crushing its enemies and bending others to its will. Why should humanity be any different?" Yoonji didn't respond immediately. She had always admired Jun-hyuk's ambition, but sometimes his ideas frightened her. Still, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Humanity was fractured, vulnerable, and surrounded by threats far greater than anything they had faced on Earth. Perhaps drastic measures were necessary. Before either of them could say more, the door slid open, and a young officer stepped inside. He saluted quickly before addressing them. "Commander Jun-hyuk, General Yoonji, we've received new intel from the exploration team on Delta 7. They've discovered something unusual." Jun-hyuk straightened up, his interest piqued. "Unusual? Explain?" The officer hesitated, clearly unsure how to describe what he'd heard. "It's hard to explain, sir. A structure. Ancient, buried deep beneath the planet's surface. Preliminary scans suggest it's some kind of weapon, though we can't confirm its purpose yet." Yoonji exchanged a glance with Jun-hyuk. This was exactly the kind of opportunity they had been waiting for. "Prepare a shuttle," Jun-hyuk ordered. "We're going to Delta 7. Delta 7 was a barren world, its surface covered in jagged rocks and endless stretches of gray dust. The air was thin and unbreathable, forcing everyone to wear protective suits as they moved through the excavation site. Jun-hyuk and Yoonji led a small team of scientists and engineers down into the cavern where the structure had been found. As they descended, the temperature dropped sharply, and the walls of the tunnel glowed faintly with bioluminescent moss. At the bottom, they reached a massive chamber dominated by a towering machine. Its design was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Smooth, metallic surfaces etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. In the center of the device was a pulsating orb of light, emitting a soft hum that resonated through the cavern. One of the scientists approached cautiously, holding a scanning device. "Sir, this technology is beyond anything in our database. It's possible it predates even the oldest civilizations in the galaxy." Jun-hyuk stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the glowing orb. "Can it be activated?" The scientist hesitated. "Possibly, but we don't know what it does. Activating it without understanding its function could have catastrophic consequences." Yoonji stepped forward, her tone firm. "We don't have time for caution. Humanity is on the brink of collapse. If this thing can give us an advantage, we need to use it." Junhyuk nodded in agreement. Work on deciphering the controls. I want updates every hour. Over the next several days, the team worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the machine. Progress was slow, but eventually, they identified a sequence of symbols that appeared to act as a trigger. When activated, the orb began to glow brighter, and the entire structure vibrated with energy. "It's working," one of the engineers exclaimed. "But I'm detecting gravitational fluctuations. This thing might be capable of manipulating planetary forces." Junhyuk's lips curled into a satisfied smile. "Perfect." Back aboard the Eternal Dawn, Junhyuk and Yoonji met privately to discuss their next move. The weapon was real, and its potential was staggering. With it, they could reshape the galaxy according to their vision. But first, they needed allies. "We can't do this alone," Yoonji said. "Even if we control the weapon, we'll still face resistance from other human factions." Junhyuk nodded. "Which is why we turned to the Vorthakai." The Vorthakai were a mysterious alien race known for their advanced technology and ruthless efficiency. They had clashed with humanity in the past, but Junhyuk believed he could negotiate a deal. By offering them access to human innovations and resources, he hoped to secure their support in wielding the weapon. Yoonji frowned. "They won't trust us easily. And if they find out we're using them?" "They won't," Junhyuk interrupted. "By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late. Besides, once we demonstrate the weapon's power, they'll see the benefits of aligning with us." Reluctantly, Yoonji agreed. Together, they drafted a proposal and sent it to the Vorthakai ambassador. Days passed before they received a response, but when it came, it was favorable. The aliens agreed to meet on neutral ground to discuss terms. Meanwhile, rumors of their activities began to spread. Among the crew of the Eternal Dawn, whispers of betrayal grew louder. One person who noticed was Hai Wan, a brilliant scientist assigned to analyze data from Delta 7. Though loyal to the Vanguard, she couldn't ignore the growing unease in her gut. Something wasn't right. Hai Wan decided to dig deeper. Late at night, when most of the crew was asleep, she accessed restricted files on the ship's mainframe. What she found shocked her. Logs detailing secret negotiations with the Vorthakai, plans for mass destruction, and evidence of Junhyuk and Yoonji's true intentions. It was all there. Her hands trembled as she downloaded the information onto a secure drive. She knew she couldn't confront them directly. They were too powerful, too protected. Instead, she sought out someone she trusted. Kang Min, a pilot stationed on the Eternal Dawn. Kang Min listened intently as Hai Wan explained what she had uncovered. His initial disbelief quickly gave way to anger. "They betrayed us," he muttered. "They betrayed all of us." "What do we do?" Hai Wan asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kang Min clenched his fists. "We fight back." Unbeknownst to them, Junhyuk and Yoonji were already putting their plan into motion. Using the weapon, they targeted a distant human colony that had refused to submit to the Vanguard's authority. The attack was swift and devastating, wiping out millions in an instant. To the rest of the galaxy, it appeared as though the colony had been destroyed by hostile aliens, a lie carefully crafted to justify further militarization. As chaos erupted across human territories, Hai Wan and Kang Min realized they were running out of time. They needed to act fast if they wanted to stop Junhyuk and Yoonji before it was too late. But stopping them wouldn't be easy. The traitors held all the cards, and they weren't afraid to play dirty. The galaxy was in turmoil. News of the destroyed colony spread like wildfire, sparking panic among human settlements. People whispered about alien invasions and imminent doom. The Vanguard's propaganda machine worked overtime, painting Junhyuk and Yoonji as heroes determined to protect humanity from a growing extraterrestrial threat. But behind closed doors, they were already planning their next move. Junhyuk stood in the command center of the Eternal Dawn, watching streams of data flash across holographic displays. Reports poured in from every corner of human space. Colonies, begging for protection, military units scrambling to reinforce borders, and civilians fleeing in droves. It was chaos, but it was exactly what he wanted. Fear made people easier to control. Yoonji entered the room, her expression calm but calculating. Phase 1 is complete, she said, her voice steady. The colony strike has sent a clear message. If anyone resists us, they'll face annihilation. Junhyuk nodded, his lips curling into a faint smile. And now we tighten our grip. With the weapon operational, no one will dare oppose us. But not everyone was fooled. Haewon and Kang Min had pieced together enough evidence to know the truth. They knew Junhyuk and Eunji weren't defending humanity. They were destroying it. Now they faced a daunting challenge. How could two ordinary people stop a pair of ruthless leaders backed by an unstoppable weapon? Haewon spent hours poring over the files she had stolen, searching for any weakness in Junhyuk and Eunji's plan. She discovered that the weapon required immense amounts of energy to function, drawing power from nearby stars. This meant it couldn't be used indiscriminately without risking catastrophic consequences. More importantly, she learned that the weapon's core relied on a rare element found only in specific locations, including Earth itself. Earth, once the cradle of humanity, had become a shadow of its former self. Overpopulation, environmental collapse, and resource depletion had forced most humans to leave centuries ago. What remained was a heavily fortified world, home to a small population and guarded by automated defense systems. If Junhyuk and Eunji gained full access to Earth's resources, they would have everything they needed to dominate the galaxy. Kang Min joined her in the dimly lit storage bay where she had set up a makeshift workstation. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, as she explained her findings. "So you're saying Earth is the key?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "Yes," Haewon replied. "If we can keep them away from Earth, we might stand a chance. But first we need help." "We can't do this alone," Kang Min sighed. "Who can we trust?" Most of the crew still believes Junhyuk and Eunji are acting in humanity's best interest. Haewon hesitated, then said, "There's someone. Yura." Yura was a hacker known throughout the fleet for her skill at bypassing security systems. She had a reputation for being unpredictable, but also fiercely loyal to those who earned her respect. Haewon hoped she could convince her to join their cause. Finding Yura wasn't easy. The young woman spent most of her time in the ship's lower decks, surrounded by clunky machines and tangled wires. When Haewon and Kang Min finally tracked her down, she was hunched over a console, tapping furiously at the keys. Her jet-black hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and her sharp eyes darted between screens filled with lines of code. "What do you want?" Yura asked without looking up. Her tone was curt, dismissive. "We need your help," Haewon said, stepping closer. "Junhyuk and Eunji, they've betrayed humanity. They're using the weapon to wipe out entire colonies." Yura stopped typing and turned to face them. For a moment, she seemed skeptical, but something in Haewon's voice must have convinced her. "Prove it," she demanded. Haewon handed her the secure drive containing the stolen data. Yura plugged it into her terminal and began scrolling through the files. As she read, her expression darkened. When she finished, she looked up, her jaw clenched. "They really did it," she muttered. "Those bastards." "Will you help us?" Kang Min asked. Yura didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the screen, deep in thought. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. But if we're doing this, we're doing it my way." With Yura on board, the trio devised a plan to expose Junhyuk and Eunji's betrayal. Their first step was to infiltrate the Vanguard's communication network. Using her hacking skills, Yura managed to tap into encrypted channels, intercepting messages between Junhyuk, Eunji, and their Vorthakai allies. What they uncovered was chilling. The aliens weren't just collaborators. They were preparing to invade human territories under the guise of retaliation for the colony attack. Junhyuk and Eunji had orchestrated the entire scheme, framing the Vorthakai as aggressors while secretly working with them to consolidate power. Armed with this information, the group decided to broadcast the truth to the galaxy. However, getting the message out wouldn't be easy. The Vanguard controlled most communication hubs, and any attempt to send unauthorized transmissions would trigger alarms. Yura suggested hijacking a damaged relay satellite drifting near the edge of the fleet. The satellite was old and barely functional, making it unlikely to attract attention. If they could repair it and upload their evidence, they could reach millions of people before Jun Hyuk and Yoonji realized what was happening. The mission to the satellite was risky. Kang Min piloted a small shuttle, keeping it low to avoid detection. Haewon and Yura worked together to repair the satellite systems, their hands trembling as they connected wires and rerouted power. Time was running out. They had only minutes before the next patrol sweep. Finally, Yura gave a triumphant shout. "Got it! Uploading now!" As the data streamed into the satellite, the trio held their breath. Moments later, the transmission went live. Across the galaxy, screens flickered to life, displaying irrefutable proof of Jun Hyuk and Yoonji's treachery. Videos showed secret meetings with the Vorthakai, logs detailing plans for mass destruction, and recordings of their cold-blooded orders to destroy the colony. The reaction was immediate. Colonies erupted in outrage, demanding answers. Military units loyal to the vanguard began questioning their leaders. Even some members of the fleet turned against Jun Hyuk and Yoonji, horrified by what they had done. But the backlash came at a cost. Jun Hyuk and Yoonji responded with brutal efficiency, deploying automated fleets to crush dissent. Planets that dared to rebel were bombarded from orbit, their cities reduced to rubble. Refugees fled in droves, seeking sanctuary wherever they could find it. Amidst the chaos, Haewon and her allies struggled to regroup. They had exposed the truth, but exposing it wasn't enough. Humanity needed leadership, unity, and hope, things that seemed impossible in the face of such devastation. One night, as they hid aboard a derelict transport ship, Haewon spoke quietly to Kang Min. "Do you think we made things worse? All we've done is add fuel to the fire." Kang Min shook his head. "No. People needed to know the truth. Maybe now they'll fight back instead of blindly following orders." Yura chimed in, her voice tinged with frustration. "Fighting back is great, but fighting smart is better. We need a plan, a real one." Haewon nodded. "Then let's make one. Together." Back on the Eternal Dawn, Jun Hyuk and Yoonji watched the rebellion unfold with mounting frustration. Their carefully constructed narrative was unraveling, and resistance was spreading faster than they had anticipated. Still, they refused to admit defeat. "We underestimated them," Yoonji admitted, her voice tight with anger. "But they're still weak. Fractured. We can crush them." Jun Hyuk smirked, his confidence unwavering. "Let them try. They'll see soon enough why opposing us is futile." As the galaxy descended further into chaos, the stage was set for a final confrontation. On one side stood Jun Hyuk and Yoonji, wielding unimaginable power but driven by arrogance and greed. On the other side were Haewon, Kang Min, Yura, and countless others willing to risk everything to save humanity. Neither side was prepared to back down. And as the battle lines were drawn, the fate of the galaxy hung precariously in the balance. The galaxy was burning. Flames of rebellion lit up distant planets as people rose against the vanguard's tyranny. Refugees streamed from devastated colonies, their faces etched with fear and anger. Among them were survivors who refused to give up. Ordinary men and women determined to fight back. But scattered acts of defiance weren't enough. Humanity needed leadership, a plan, and most importantly, hope. Haewon, Kang Min, and Yura had become symbols of resistance. Their daring broadcast had awakened the galaxy to Jun Hyuk and Eunji's betrayal, but it also painted targets on their backs. Now, hiding aboard a derelict transport ship deep in uncharted space, they worked tirelessly to unite the fractured remnants of humanity. Kang Min paced the cramped cargo bay, his boots echoing against the metal floor. "We can't keep running," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "Every day we waste is another day they tighten their grip." Haewon sat at a makeshift desk littered with maps and data pads. Her tired eyes scanned reports of destroyed colonies and fleeing refugees. "I know," she replied softly, "but we need allies. People won't follow us unless they see we have a chance to win." Yura leaned back against a stack of crates, her fingers flying over a portable terminal. "Winning isn't going to be easy," she muttered. "Jun Hyuk has automated fleets patrolling everywhere. Even if we rally fighters, they'll get slaughtered before they land a single blow." Heywan nodded, acknowledging the truth in Yura's words. Then we hit them where it hurts, the weapon itself. If we can disable it, we take away their biggest advantage. Kang Min stopped pacing and turned to face her. You mean Earth? Yes, Heywan said firmly. The weapon relies on resources only found there. If we cut off their access, we cripple them. It was a risky plan, but it was all they had. Together, they began reaching out to surviving human settlements, calling for volunteers willing to join their cause. Slowly, word spread, and people started arriving. Former soldiers, engineers, farmers, even children eager to help, however. They could. Each new arrival brought fresh determination, but also harsh reminders of what they were fighting for. One such arrival was an elderly man named Byung-soo. His hands were calloused from years of labor, and his face bore scars from battles long past. He introduced himself simply as a mechanic, but his quiet strength inspired those around him. When asked why he had joined, he replied, "Because someone has to stand up. If not me, then who?" Byung-soo wasn't alone. Others shared stories of loss. Families killed in colony strikes, homes reduced to ash, dreams crushed under the weight of oppression. These stories fueled the growing fire within the resistance. For every life taken by Jun Hyuk and Yoon-ji, 10 more stood ready to fight. As the resistance grew, so did its challenges. Supplies were scarce, morale wavered, and disagreements flared among members about how best to proceed. Some argued for immediate action, launching attacks on nearby patrols to draw attention away from Earth. Others insisted on stealth, urging patience while they gathered intelligence and built alliances. Tensions came to a head during a heated meeting in the ship's main hold. Dozens of voices shouted over one another, each side convinced their approach was right. Heywan stood silently at the edge of the crowd, letting the storm play out. When the noise finally subsided, she stepped forward. "We're stronger together," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "But arguing like this will only tear us apart. We don't have time for division. If we want to survive, we need unity." Her words struck a chord. Gradually, the group calmed down, agreeing to focus on the mission ahead. They decided to split into smaller teams, each tasked with specific objectives: gathering weapons, repairing ships, and securing safe routes to Earth. Kang Min took charge of training pilots, teaching them how to evade automated fleets and strike quickly when necessary. Yura worked on disabling enemy drones, using her hacking skills to infiltrate their systems and turn them against their creators. Heywan coordinated logistics, ensuring everyone had what they needed to stay alive and effective. Despite the progress, doubts lingered. Many wondered if their efforts would make any difference. After all, how could a ragtag group of rebels stand against a force armed with an ancient weapon capable of destroying entire planets? Meanwhile, Jun-hyuk and Yoon-ji monitored the resistance's movements with growing irritation. Though their automated fleets had managed to crush several uprisings, the rebels seemed to adapt quickly, slipping through cracks in their defenses. It was becoming clear that brute force alone wouldn't be enough. "We need to end this now," Yoon-ji said during a private briefing aboard the Eternal Dawn. "If we let them reach Earth, they might find a way to sabotage the weapon." Jun-hyuk nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. Deploy additional units to guard Earth's perimeter, and send scouts to locate their base. I want them eliminated before they pose a real threat." Unbeknownst to them, their actions played directly into the Resistance's hands. By concentrating forces around Earth, they left other areas vulnerable, a fact Yura exploited to great effect. Using stolen codes and rerouted signals, she orchestrated a series of decoy attacks across multiple systems, drawing patrols away from key locations. While the automated fleet scrambled to respond, Heywan and Kang Min prepared for the final push. They assembled a small fleet of patched-together ships, each carrying volunteers ready to risk everything for humanity's future. The journey to Earth would be perilous, but failure was not an option. The night before departure, the Resistance held a quiet ceremony in the ship's cargo bay. Candles flickered in the dim light, casting shadows on the walls. One by one, members stepped forward to share their thoughts, words of courage, remembrance, and resolve. Byung-soo spoke last. Holding up a worn wrench, he said, "This may not look like much, but it's kept me alive more times than I can count. Remember this. No matter how big the problem, sometimes the smallest tools can fix it. Stay strong, stay clever, and we'll get through this. His words lifted spirits, reminding everyone why they had chosen to fight. As the candles burned low, HFY addressed the group. Tomorrow we face our greatest challenge yet. But, remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who's lost, everyone who's suffering, and everyone who deserves a better future. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. The next morning, the A fleet launched into the void heading toward Earth. Along the way, they encountered minimal resistance, thanks to Ura's diversions. Automated patrols passed harmlessly by, unaware of the danger approaching their stronghold. As they neared Earth's orbit, the planet loomed large in their viewports, a pale blue sphere marred by scars of neglect and decay. Automated defense. Systems lined its atmosphere, ready to obliterate anything that dared approach, but the resistance had anticipated this. Ura hacked into the system moments before arrival, creating a narrow window for the fleet to slip through undetected. Once inside, the team split into two groups. HFY led a ground team to infiltrate the facility housing the weapon's core, while Kang Min stayed behind to coordinate air support and fend off reinforcements. Time was critical. Every second counted. The facility was a labyrinth of corridors and security checkpoints. HFY's team moved swiftly, avoiding cameras and neutralizing guards. Finally, they reached the control room, where the glowing orb of the weapon pulsed ominously. HFY approached cautiously, her heart pounding as she examined the complex interface. "Can you shut it down?" asked one of her teammates. "I think so," she replied, her fingers hovering over the controls. "But it won't be easy." Behind them, alarms blared. Reinforcements were closing in. HFY worked faster, her mind racing as she deciphered the alien symbols. Just as she entered the final sequence, the door burst open, and Eunji strode in, her weapon drawn. "You really thought you could stop us?" Eunji sneered, her eyes blazing with fury. HFY didn't respond. Instead, she pressed the final button, triggering a cascade of shutdown protocols. The orb dimmed, its hum fading into silence. Eunji lunged forward, but it was too late. The weapon was offline, for now. Outside, Kang Min's forces clashed with incoming patrols, buying precious time for the ground team. Explosions lit up the sky as ships exchanged fire, but the resistance held firm. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, and no one was willing to give up. Not yet. End of Part 3. Write Part 4. All of them one by one of 1,400 words each. In a separate document, and it should be interesting, and write it in third-person style, and it should be in simple and basic English. Use simple and basic English, and don't create more chapters, headings or parts numbers in each part. Quen 2.5, Max 1243, AM document. Part 4. The control room was tense, the air thick with urgency. Eunji stood frozen for a moment, staring at the now dormant orb of the weapon. Her face twisted into a mask of rage as she realized what HFY had done. The glowing core that had once pulsed with unimaginable power was silent, its energy drained. "You think this changes anything?" Eunji spat, her voice sharp like shards of glass. "Even without the weapon, we still have the fleet. We still have Earth." HFY didn't respond immediately. She was breathing heavily, her hands trembling after completing the shutdown sequence. Behind her, the rest of the ground team readied their weapons, forming a protective. The control room was tense, the air thick with urgency. Eunji stood frozen for a moment, staring at the now dormant orb of the weapon. Her face twisted into a mask of rage as she realized what HFY had done. The glowing core that had once pulsed with unimaginable power was silent, its energy drained. "You think this changes anything?" Eunji spat, her voice sharp like shards of glass. "Even without the weapon, we still have the fleet. We still have Earth." HFY didn't respond immediately. She was breathing heavily, her hands trembling after completing the shutdown sequence. Behind her, the rest of the ground team readied their weapons, forming a protective circle around her. They knew Eunji wasn't alone. Reinforcements would arrive any second. "It's over," HFY finally said, her voice steady. despite the chaos. Your plans are falling apart. Humanity won't follow you anymore. Yunji let out a bitter laugh. You underestimate us. This is just a setback, a minor inconvenience. Junhyuk and I will rebuild, stronger, better. Before either side could act, footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Heavy boots signaled the approach of armored soldiers loyal to the vanguard. Haewon glanced at her team, silently urging them to stay focused. They couldn't afford to lose now, not when they were so close. Hold them off, Haewon ordered, her tone firm. I'll finish disabling the system permanently. Her team nodded, taking positions near the door. As the first wave of soldiers burst in, blaster fire erupted, filling the room with flashes of light and deafening noise. Haewon crouched behind a console, typing furiously to lock the core's systems. If she succeeded, reactivating the weapon would take days, if not weeks. Yunji watched from the sidelines, unwilling to risk herself in the crossfire. Instead, she activated her communicator, speaking urgently. Junhyuk, they've reached the core. Send backup immediately. Static crackled on the other end before Junhyuk's voice came through. On my way! Hold them off until I get there! Yunji clenched her fists. Do you really think I can stop them all by myself? You don't have a choice, Junhyuk replied coldly. If they destroy the core, everything we've worked for will be lost. As the firefight intensified, Haewon felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Every second counted. She ignored the sounds of battle around her, focusing solely on the task at hand. Finally, the screen displayed a message. System locked. Core disabled. We did it! One of her teammates shouted, relief evident in his voice, but Haewon knew better. This victory was temporary. Unless they escaped, and fast, they'd be captured or killed. Fall back, she yelled. We need to regroup with Kang Min. Her team fought their way toward the exit, using smoke grenades to obscure their movements. Yunji lunged forward, trying to stop them, but a well-placed shot from one of the rebels sent her sprawling to the ground. For a brief moment, Haewon hesitated, tempted to confront her directly. But there was no time. They had to keep moving. Outside, the skies above Earth were ablaze with conflict. Kang Min's makeshift fleet clashed with automated patrols, each ship maneuvering desperately to gain the upper hand. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending shock waves rippling through space. Despite being outnumbered, the resistance fighters held their ground, driven by sheer determination. Kang Min sat in the cockpit of his battered fighter, sweat dripping down his forehead as he dodged incoming fire. His comm crackled to life. Kang Min, this is Haewon. We've disabled the core, but reinforcements are coming. We need extraction, now! I see you, Kang Min replied, spotting their signal on his scanner. He banked sharply, flying low to avoid enemy turrets. Hang tight! I'm bringing the transport! Moments later, a bulky cargo ship descended through the chaos, its engines roaring as it approached the landing zone. Haewon and her team sprinted toward it, bullets whizzing past their heads. One rebel fell, clutching his leg, but another pulled him aboard before the ramp closed. As the transport lifted off, Junhyuk's flagship emerged from orbit, its massive cannons trained on the fleeing vessel. A hail of plasma bolts tore through the atmosphere, narrowly missing the transport as it climbed higher. Inside the cockpit, Kang Min gritted his teeth, pushing the engines to their limit. Not today, he muttered under his breath. Not today. With expert precision, he guided the ship through a narrow canyon of floating debris, using the terrain to evade pursuit. Behind them, Junhyuk's forces gave chase, relentless in their efforts to stop the rebels. Back aboard the Eternal Dawn, Junhyuk paced the bridge, his frustration boiling over. The failure at the core facility was unacceptable. Not only had the rebels managed to disable the weapon, but they had also escaped unscathed. It was a blow to his pride and to his vision for humanity's future. They're heading for the asteroid belt, one of his officers reported. Should we pursue? No, Junhyuk replied, his voice icy. Let them run. They'll lead us straight to their base. Once we find it, we'll crush them completely. Yunji limped onto the bridge, her armor scorched and her expression. Grim, this isn't over, she said, meeting Junhyuk's gaze. They may have slowed us down, but they haven't stopped us. Junhyuk nodded, his lips curling into a thin smile. Exactly. And when we catch them, they'll regret ever crossing us. Meanwhile, the Resistance fleet regrouped in the shadow of a massive asteroid. Their ships were damaged, their supplies dwindling, but their spirits remained high. Survivors patched up wounds and repaired hull breaches, while leaders gathered to plan their next move. HFY stood at the center of the makeshift command center, addressing the group. We've dealt them a serious blow, but they're still dangerous. Junhyuk won't give up easily. We need to strike again, before they recover. Kang Min nodded. Agreed. But how? Their fleet is stronger than ours, and they know we're here. Yura spoke up, her eyes gleaming with an idea. We hit them where they least expect it, their alliance with the Vorthakai. Everyone turned to look at her, surprised. What do you mean? HFY asked. The Vorthakai aren't loyal. To Junhyuk, Yura explained. They're working with him because they think he's useful. But if we show them he's unstable, if we expose his true intentions, they might turn on him. It was a risky plan, but it was their best chance. HFY agreed, and the group began devising a strategy. Using intercepted communications and stolen data, Yura crafted a message designed to sow distrust between Junhyuk and the Vorthakai. The plan was simple: leak evidence of Junhyuk's lies and watch the alliance crumble. Days passed as the Resistance prepared for their final gambit. Scouts reported increased activity near Junhyuk's fleet, suggesting he was planning a large-scale assault. Time was running out. Finally, the moment came. Under cover of darkness, a small team led by Kang Min infiltrated a Vorthakai outpost disguised as traders. They planted the forged documents in a secure terminal, ensuring the aliens would discover them soon enough. Then they slipped away, leaving no trace of their presence. Within hours, the Vorthakai responded. Their ambassador contacted Junhyuk, demanding answers about the discrepancies in his reports. Accusations flew back and forth, each side growing angrier and more suspicious. By the time the truth came out, the alliance was irreparably broken. Vorthakai withdrew their support, recalling their forces and leaving Junhyuk and Yunji isolated. Without their alien allies, the traitors' grip on power weakened significantly. Encouraged by this development, the Resistance launched a coordinated attack on Junhyuk's fleet. With Yura disabling automated defenses remotely, the rebels struck hard and fast, targeting key vessels and crippling their command structure. Chaos erupted among Junhyuk's ranks as confusion spread. In the midst of the battle, HFY confronted Yunji aboard the Eternal Dawn. The two women faced each other in the heart of the ship, surrounded by sparks and smoke. Their fight was fierce, fueled by anger and desperation. Each blow landed with precision, each movement calculated. You can't win, Yunji snarled, swinging wildly. Humanity doesn't deserve survival. HFY blocked the attack, countering with a swift kick. That's not your decision to make. Their struggle ended abruptly when a massive explosion rocked the ship, throwing both women to the ground. When the dust settled, HFY stood victorious, Yunji unconscious at her feet. Elsewhere, Kang Min cornered Junhyuk in the flagship's engine room. The traitorous leader tried to escape, but Kang Min was faster. With nowhere left to run, Junhyuk surrendered, his arrogance replaced by fear. It's over, Kang Min said, his voice cold. Your reign of terror ends here. As the Resistance secured their victory, the galaxy began to heal. Refugees returned to their homes, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Though scars remained, hope blossomed anew. For the first time in years, humanity looked to the stars not with fear, but with determination. Together, they vowed never to repeat the mistakes of the past. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in years. The battle had ended, and the forces of Junhyuk and Yunji were defeated. Their once mighty fleet lay in ruins, its ships drifting like ghostly remnants of a dark chapter humanity hoped to leave behind. The weapon that had threatened to destroy entire worlds was now nothing more than a dormant relic, locked away deep beneath Earth's surface. But victory came at a cost. The Resistance had lost many brave souls along the way, fighters who had given everything to protect humanity's future. Among them was Byung-Soo, the elderly mechanic whose quiet strength had inspired so many. He had sacrificed himself during the final assault, staying behind to ensure the transport carrying survivors could escape safely. His death weighed heavily on Haewon, Kangmin, and Yura, but they knew his courage would never be forgotten. Now, aboard a battered but still functional ship, the remaining members of the Resistance gathered to decide what came next. They had stopped Junhyuk and Yunji, but their work wasn't over yet. Humanity needed leadership, unity, and a plan to rebuild what had been shattered. Haewon stood at the front of the room, addressing the group. Her voice was calm but filled with resolve. "We've won this fight," she began, "but we're not done. Too many people have suffered because of greed and betrayal. Now it's our job to make sure that never happens again." Kangmin nodded, in agreement. "We need to bring everyone together, not just humans, but other species too. If we want peace, we have to build trust." Yura chimed in, her tone sharp but thoughtful. "And we need to learn from our mistakes. Technology like the weapon, it's dangerous. We can't let anyone abuse power like that again." The group discussed ideas for creating a new governing body, one designed to represent all voices fairly. It wouldn't be easy. There were countless factions, each with their own needs and fears, but they were determined to try. For the first time in a long time, there was hope. Meanwhile, Junhyuk and Yunji faced justice for their crimes. Captured alive during the final battle, they were brought before a council of human leaders representing surviving colonies. The trial was brief but intense, as evidence of their betrayal was presented for all to see. Junhyuk remained defiant, even as the verdict was read aloud. "You think you've saved humanity?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You've only delayed the inevitable. Without me, you'll fall apart again." Yunji said nothing, her expression unreadable. Perhaps she understood the gravity of their actions, or perhaps she simply didn't care anymore. Their punishment was exile. Stripped of rank and privilege, they were sent to a barren asteroid far from inhabited space. There they would live out their days surrounded by emptiness, forced to reflect on the destruction they had caused. As the transport carrying them departed, Haewon watched silently from the observation deck. She felt no satisfaction, only sadness. "They could have done so much good," she murmured to Kangmin, who stood beside her. "Instead, they chose hatred and control." Kangmin placed a hand on her shoulder. "Some people can't change, but we can. That's what matters now." Back on Earth, efforts to repair the planet began in earnest. Refugees returned, bringing with them skills and determination to restore balance. Fields once barren were replanted, cities rebuilt, and rivers cleaned. It was slow work, but every step forward felt like a triumph. Byung-Soo's memory lived on through the stories shared by those he had touched. A small memorial was erected in his honor near the facility where the weapon had been disabled. It served as a reminder of both the sacrifices made and the importance of humility and cooperation. Haewon played a key role in these efforts, using her knowledge to guide sustainable development. She worked closely with scientists and engineers, ensuring that Earth's resources were used wisely. Her leadership earned her respect across the galaxy, though she never sought fame or recognition. Kangmin focused on rebuilding the military, not as a force for conquest, but as a means of defense and exploration. Pilots trained under his guidance learned not only how to fight, but also how to protect others. Together, they patrolled the stars, keeping watch for any signs of trouble. Yura, meanwhile, turned her talents toward education. She traveled between colonies, teaching young people about technology, ethics, and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Her classes became popular, drawing crowds eager to learn from someone who had seen the worst and helped overcome it. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Not everyone trusted the new governing body, and old rivalries occasionally flared up. Some feared that power might corrupt again, leading to another cycle of oppression and rebellion. These concerns were valid, but the lessons of the past guided decision-making moving forward. One day, Haewon addressed a gathering of leaders from various colonies. "We've been given a second chance," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Let's use it wisely. Let's show the galaxy that humanity is capable of greatness, not through domination, but through compassion and understanding. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring renewed commitment to unity. Slowly but surely, humanity began to heal. Far away on the desolate asteroid where Jun-hyuk and Yoon-ji had been exiled, life was bleak. The two former leaders spent their days in silence, staring out at the endless void. Occasionally, Jun-hyuk muttered bitterly about how humanity had failed to understand his vision. Yoon-ji rarely spoke, her eyes often distant, as if lost in thought. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain, Yoon-ji finally broke her silence. "Do you ever wonder if we were wrong?" she asked softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Jun-hyuk frowned, surprised by the question. "Wrong? About what?" "Everything," she replied. "The weapon, the Vorthakai, betraying our own kind. Did we really believe we were helping humanity? Or were we just trying to satisfy our own egos?" For once, Jun-hyuk had no answer. He looked away, unable, or unwilling, to confront the truth. In the end, humanity emerged stronger from the ordeal. Though scars remained, they served as reminders of resilience and the importance of working together. Across the galaxy, people celebrated their shared survival, looking to the stars with optimism instead of fear. Haewon, Kang-min, and Yu-ra continued to lead by example, proving that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. Together, they forged a brighter future, a future built on hope, trust, and the unshakable belief that humanity deserved a place among the stars. And somewhere, in the vastness of space, the ancient weapon slept, its secrets buried beneath layers of rock and time. It would remain there, silent and forgotten, a testament to the dangers of ambition and the enduring strength of those who refuse to give up.